So what was my problem with this game? This town music is the same town music that you're gonna be hearing in every town in the whole game. This overworld music is the same exact overworld music that plays no matter which world you are even in. And holy shit, the battle music, get used to this song because it plays every battle in the entire game, and that even includes the boss battles. The story is that the land is split up by two different factions, Arakios and Layans, and it's just typical medieval fantasy fare. They don't like each other. That's pretty much it. They fight, the war ends, and the entrances to other worlds are blocked off. In time, people actually forget that other worlds existed. So Rise is about to get married, and then a gargoyle shows up and takes away your bride. And it's like, they reference it as a Layan. So you kind of right off the bat, like you're kind of thinking that Layans are these gargoyle creatures or something. And as you progress through the game, they're just normal human beings like everyone else. Your first party member is a cyborg named Mew. I wonder why they had to give her that name Mew. It sounds so much like Meow from Phantasy Star 1. Like, you have so many different names. You couldn't just give her something totally different? And think of it like this. What if Meow actually was in Phantasy Star 3? That would have given enough fan service for so early on in the game that I probably would have continued playing it as a kid. I mean, you spend too long in this game not knowing that has anything to do with Phantasy Star at all. And it's just a little too much. There's too much different things going on at once. The graphics are different, the sound is different. I don't know what's going on with the sound, but something's off. It's almost like whoever's in charge of like that FM chip, they just weren't doing a good job with what they had. And don't tell me that like having Meow wouldn't make any sense. Because Meow's literally sitting in a dungeon in Desolus in Phantasy Star 4, like 2,000 years after her quest with Alice, just sitting there. And I mean, well, she doesn't do nothing. She gives I think she gives the silver tusk to Rika in Phantasy Star 4, which should have been the silver fang. I mean, you know, I'm not gonna care about all the mistranslations in this shit because it's just too much. It's consistently inconsistent. You meet this guy Lyle in the first dungeon, and he gives you a sapphire that allows you to travel to other worlds through passageways. These passageways are the most tedious part of Phantasy Star 3. This has to be the worst part of the beginning of the game. And holy shit, that's Ren. At some point in the first generation, you actually need Ren to fix a weather control system to revert Aquatica from being frozen. Climate control system? Climate control system? Weather control system? Anyways, you go after the Lion King of Chile or Sile, you kick his ass, and you rescue Maya. Then the game gives you an interesting option. You can actually choose not to marry Maya. The girl that set off your quest in the beginning, you can choose not to marry her and marry this girl Lena. I don't remember who she was, but you're gonna wanna marry Lena because the game actually has 4 different endings, and the one ending that us Phantasy Star historians consider canon is gonna be with Lena. Anyway, they get married and have a kid. Peaceful times until the kid turns 18. Monsters are suddenly invading his family's territory. Time to journey out and find out what's the matter. There's an interesting part of the second generation where you actually go underground the world of Iridia, the desert world, to a hidden world where the original Leia's sister's in cryogenic sleep. And she even has the same name as her sister Leia. Cryogenic sleep?
Cryogenic sleep?
This place, I just call it Leia's world. It has the same music as the title screen, and to be honest, this is one out of only 2 songs that I enjoy listening to in this entire game. With Leia in your party, you go to this town and find Leia's pendant, which allows you to travel to other worlds. You've been wondering what these temples are, because I sure was. Now I can enter them to teleport instantly to another world without ever having to take those grueling passageways again. And thank goodness for that. You end up going to the moon Dahlia, and in that moment, wow, you've been on a spaceship this entire time. I mean, that makes sense. Every time you went underground in a passageway, it was like you were inside some complex machine. It wasn't an ordinary cave. So finally, some of the story's unraveling and the different worlds thing makes a bit more sense. But still, how is this Phantasy Star again? I still don't really see a connection. You go to the dungeon on Dahlia, you meet Loon, who is responsible for the monster attacks, and you defeat him. Because he doesn't die. In the third generation, Loon is like a family friend at that point, and his daughter, Kara, joins Aaron in the third generation alongside Ren and Mew. So third generation starts with another ship approaching your ship. I mean, that was pretty mind-blowing when I first saw that there was another ship just like your own with its own world and its own history. I mean, that thing has been in deep space for 1,000 years too. We destroyed it? It's like, holy shit, wow. There was like, in just like 10 seconds, you went from being, holy shit, there's another spaceship just like ours, to being, oh my God, we destroyed it. We just like, there's like, it's just crazy to think that like, that spaceship has its own story going on in it, you know what I mean? And it's just gone. Makes you think, really makes you think. Anyway, it's your job to find out who ordered the attacks. Ren starts flying around to some pretty catchy music, making this song the second song in Phantasy Star 3 that doesn't suck. You fly to this isolated village called New Motavia? And there's some guys in robes that it's their job to share the genesis of the Alyssa III. And now it feels like a Phantasy Star game. In the third act. You go to this town, Skyhaven, that has more elders or priests or whatever you want to call them. They tell you that they need 5 legendary pieces of equipment, and once you get them to come back, luckily Leia already has her legendary bow and Kara has Loon's slicer, so you really only need to get 3. You go all the way back to Landon and you go to that underwater temple. You grab the Sword of Arakio off the pedestal and revive Dark Force in the process. I mean, what the hell? Why? Why did those elder priests tell me to go get the Arakio sword? For what reason? If it's just gonna revive Dark Force, what's the point? What if I got those 4 other legendary equipment for Leia and Ren and Mew and everybody except Aaron? He doesn't have the Arakio sword. What if I just get those 4 legendary pieces of equipment? Is that not enough? And hold on a second. Why do I need this equipment anyway? For what? What am I fighting? Dark Force, at this point that I'm talking to this priest, Dark Force is still sealed in the Orakio sword. He's still sealed. Why are you telling me to go revive him? I mean, this is a part of the game I really don't get it. I just don't get it. You go back to Skyhaven, and then the Elders upgrade them into knee weapons. Knee weapons? Finally, you go to the last world, which is supposedly evil because Dark Force went there when you released him. You go there, you defeat Orakio's twin brother, enter the dungeon, and you find Dark Force in a box. I really don't understand why Dark Force is in a box. In Phantasy Star 2, there's some kind of explanation that you can kind of like mix together, but with Phantasy Star 3, why would he go in that box? Like it doesn't really make sense. Why is he in a box? Okay, whatever, he's in a box. Yeah, overall, like, Phantasy Star 3's Dark Force was not a very difficult fight at all. It actually kind of blew my mind, because usually, in Phantasy Star games, or usually any RPG, before the final boss, you do a bit of grinding. Everyone does that. In Phantasy Star 3, I did zero grinding. I mean, before the final boss, I did zero grinding. None. So, I mean, I beat him, you beat Dark Force, things start to crumble, because Aaron, for some reason, gets extremely angry, and he triggers the Megiddo technique. The Megiddo technique. Why do they call it Megiddo? Like, they're always changing the names of things. It's called Majid. That's it, Majid. Anyway, he basically self-destructs himself. He goes crazy. I don't know what Majid, I don't know what it does. He gets very angry. The place collapses, and then there's a cutscene of them going in a black hole. Now this ending is actually incredibly tragic because we destroyed the Neopalm. Like, there was 400 ships. There was just us and one more left. We ended up destroying it. Dark Force kind of won in that regard. That was his plan all along. He was just trying to make us hate each other, you know? Now, my biggest thing with the way this game is you're probably thinking the same thing I am. This ship is heading towards Earth in the distance past. Like, the way black holes work, I'm sure that not only did they just teleport themselves to a brand new galaxy, but I'm sure the dilation is insane. And so it makes you think, when they go back in time to Earth, is the Profound Darkness, which was defeated in Phantasy Star 4, the Profound Darkness is probably still alive at this point when you go to Earth. Does this Phantasy Star 3 ending create some sort of a time loop? Because the way I'm thinking is, the Earthmen at the end of Phantasy Star 2 were clearly corrupted by Dark Force to come to Algol themselves and destroy one of the planets, thus weakening the seal of the Profound Darkness. So that just makes you think, maybe that Alyssa III, maybe they landed on Earth, and maybe there was a brief moment of, hey, who are you? And there was prosperity and discovery on Earth, and maybe 1,000 years later, Earth time, Dark Force came back, and he's on Earth, and maybe he destroyed the planet, and maybe Dark Force was able to fix up the Alyssa III, the ship, and go back out into deep space, go back to Algol, and then that becomes the spaceship Noah that you see in Phantasy Star 2. I mean, there's no concrete evidence for this or anything, obviously, but I mean, for this ending to end the way it does, I mean, it's there. It's there. The time loop is there. It's not like, oh, they just show up at Earth, they live there happily ever after. No, we know they went back in time, and we know that the Earthlings come back in Phantasy Star 2 to fucking shit up. So, yeah, that's my theory. In my theory, it's possible that Alyssa III and Noah are the two same spaceships. This game borrowed so many elements from Phantasy Star 2 that I had to mention them. The climate control system, the Leia's sister being in cryogenic sleep, the knee weapons, and finally Dark Force being in a box again. But what's cool is
Keep an eye out on the final moments of Phantasy Star 2. The end credits, just take a look at it. That is one of the 400 spaceships that escaped Palma right before it exploded. Nice little like foreshadow for the next game right there.
Anyway guys, this is just one of the many tragedies that have come to pass as the world falls into turmoil.